So, the abuse started when I was very young. I can't remember the exact age. I remember sleeping in a captain's bed. So it was very tall, and it was brown, and it had lots of drawers. And I remember it was probably around 5 or 6, and that was the first incident I at least remember. And he came out of his office and he fondled me. And there was multiple incidents afterwards, and I think it ended maybe around when I was 9 or 10. I was hiding in the house, and I went to the bathroom to hide from him, and I could see him walking around the house naked, looking for me in every room. And I remember feeling terrified, and I remember feeling like this is wrong, and if I don't do something now, it's never gonna stop. And so he found me in the bathroom, and I remember hugging him, and he was completely naked and very tall, and he was twice my size, twice my weight. He was the very definition of a monster, but this was somebody I loved and somebody I cared, and during the day they were decent. And so I hugged this monster, who was my father, and I said, I love you, but this isn't okay, and this needs to stop. And I didn't really understand why it wasn't okay or what it was happening to me, but I just knew it was wrong. And he went to his bedroom, and I don't think anything else ever happened again. But there were multiple incidents between the first and the last, but those two stand out in my mind the most. That's a doozy. I started smoking regularly at 11. I was smoking weed by the time I was 12, and I was a regular cocaine user by the time I was 13 or 14. I was going to junior high every day with a screwdriver in my hand, smoking, and lots of other things, so, there was all of that. But, it, in its own way, shaped things in a very positive way. I like to say I'm thankful for both my parents. My mom taught me everything I want to be, and everything that is a hero, and everything that is good in this world. And she taught me how to survive through the toughest of situations. And my father taught me lots of wonderful life lessons in some of the worst ways possible. And he taught me the kind of people I don't want in my life, and the kind of man I never want to have as a partner, and the kind of husband I never want to have for my kids. And as negative as those incidents were, they were very good life lessons to learn at a very young age. So I became a workaholic, and I indulged myself in myself. And I became successful, and I became independent, and I didn't need a man. Strong, independent woman that don't need no man. But I was still missing love, and I was still missing having a man in my life. And so it caused me to divulge myself into very toxic relationships with much older men. One of my first long-term relationships, I was 14 and he was 21 when we got together. And we were together for 6 years. It was scary, abusive. He hit me. He played chicken with semi-trucks because he didn't want to live. I shouldn't live either. It was for sure abusive, and my following relationships were for sure abusive, and I seem to fall into a trend of needing men who don't show me a lot of love, because I guess as long as the sex is great, that means they love me, right? So that's the kind of way that it shapes your development and your perception of society and the world around you. Is it does skew your mindset on loving people and how to love people and how to be loved. And my self-esteem and my self-worth was based entirely off how I could sexually please others, and it caused a lot of tension and toxic sexual relationships and many things to happen that I think were obviously in my control, but the only way at the time I knew how to cope with the situation. And my methods of surviving were simply to numb the pain, and that's so normal for so many people. And 12 years later, I'm here and I'm able to talk about it, and that's counseling, and that's reporting, and that's facing your fears and just whipping off the band-aids and opening those wounds and just getting it all out. That's the best way to shape your life right now after everything bad that you might have done and every toxic and negative coping mechanism you may have used in your life or you may still be using in your life, there is always a chance to turn that around and cope in ways that are going to get you the life that you want. And so I think my healthiest coping mechanism right now is being a workaholic. And I work long days and I love it because I don't have a chance to think about the pain. And as numbing as that still is, and it's still not the best coping mechanism, it is better than what it used to be. And that's, I think, all that you can hope for, is just try to be better than what you were the day before. That's, I think, all that anyone can hope for. Yes. The first time it happened, when I was in the captain's bed, I went up and I told my mom what happened, and she told me to just not sleep down there anymore and go to my own bedroom, which did not have a locking door, and she would talk to my dad about it. Which, if you take the Little Warriors Prevented program, which raises awareness about childhood sexual abuse and how to properly disclose, you learn that is the number one thing you don't do is go ask the abuser about it or keep a child in that environment. At the time, there wasn't these programs around to raise awareness about sexual abuse and how to deal with children disclosing. So when I disclosed, she went and talked to my dad, and he said it was sleepwalking, and he didn't remember any of it. So she told me that, and just ignore it, and just walk away if it was happening again. Don't wake him up, because you're not supposed to wake up a sleepwalker. And just kind of got swept under the rug, and that, I think, was 5 or 6. That was when it started. And so it just kind of turned into sleepwalking and just walked away if it happened. Just ignored. And then, gosh, I think I was 13 or 14, and we went on vacation to a place called Pine Lake. And it was my dad and my brother and myself. And my dad caught me fooling around with a boy that I met there. And he tried to take me away with him, and you're not supposed to do that with boys. And I blew up, and I said, how is it fair that you're allowed to have sex with me, and you're allowed to control my body and do what you want with my body, but I'm not allowed to choose who I sleep with? How is that fair? And I think it was my 12th birthday or something, and I remember blowing up at him and saying things like, how am I supposed to be excited about turning 12 when you've raped me? So I told my dad when I think I was 12 or something like that, and I told him, fathers don't do that to their daughters, and I'm not your daughter, and I haven't been since you've done that to me, and you're not my father. And I completely disowned him that day. And I remember him, walking away with his head down in shame, and I, he was yelling at him, what am I supposed to do? And he said, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to come back to the camper, you don't have to do anything. Just kind of leave me alone. And he went off and did his own thing, and I went off and did my own thing, and we left the campground early, and he went home and he told my mom what I said, and she took me to Fish Creek Park with my brother, and I had to sit with my mom while my brother went off and played, and she, what I feel is, belittled me and said, he didn't really rape you that many times, it's not really that big of a deal, you shouldn't be screaming those kind of things in public, it wasn't that bad, basically, and, pushed it under the rug again. And I just remember bawling my eyes out, thinking, how am I possibly in the wrong right now? How is this my fault? I didn't know how much more I had to explode to get the attention I needed to heal. And it was just being pushed under the rug, and I was basically screaming for help, and no one could hear me. And it was isolating, and it was frustrating. And after that point, I became suicidal. And I started cutting myself, and I had a severe eating disorder. I was very addicted to drugs, hard drugs, and alcohol. And I was not doing okay. I was doing everything in my mind I could to numb the pain, and nothing was working. And I just remember feeling like I was nothing. I was just an empty shell walking around. And then I had a school counselor who would continually ask what was happening at home, what home life was like, and I remember I would just sit there and cry, but I couldn't say anything. I couldn't tell her. I don't even think I had really gotten to the point in my life where I could acknowledge what had happened to me. And so I think she knew, but she didn't really know. And social services were called in, and my mom was crying, and I remember feeling terrible. I remember feeling like my heart was breaking, and I was breaking my family apart, and I was the one responsible for this, because if I could have just kept it all inside and not said anything and just dealt with it, my family wouldn't be going through that pain and that burden and that heartbreak, and that destroyed me. So I didn't say anything. I didn't say who it was. When I was a kid, I asked my mom, why is Dad a part of our life? And as a kid, you expect your parents to say, oh, because we're in love, or we're a family. And instead she said, because his income keeps a roof over our head. And at that point, that was the point where I decided to sacrifice one to save the whole. And I could handle this, and I could keep a roof over my family's head if I just didn't say anything. So for years, it was just what happened. And that was okay. And everyone kind of knew about it, and everything was kind of okay with it. And it just was a part of life. And I remember sitting at Christmas dinners, or Thanksgiving dinners, or birthday dinners, and everyone at the table, almost everyone at the table, I'm not sure if my grandma knew, but basically everyone at the table knew. And we still sat there and conversed like nothing had fucking happened. Like, oh, hey, how are you? How was your day? Oh, so good. And I had to look my rapist in the eyes and converse like nothing happened. And everyone in the room thought this was perfectly okay. And I was dying inside. I was screaming inside. I hated it. It was the absolute worst. I told my boyfriend at the time, and he got really upset. And that's good. That's good. That's what people should feel. They should feel enraged and disgusted, and they should feel sick to their stomach. Because when you hear about a child being abused, that is a normal human feeling. It's because that's how you should feel. That means you're normal. That means you're human. And that's okay. So he got angry, and there was those feelings of he wanted to physically hurt him. And as much as I agree with those feelings and have thought those feelings as well, it doesn't mean they're right. And I was raised to love this man. He is my father. And I don't want to see physical harm come to him. And no matter how much he hurt me, I do not believe that he deserves to be hurt in return. I believe that it is a sickness like dementia or Alzheimer's or schizophrenia, and there needs to be some serious research done into it to give people the mental health that they both need and deserve for this particular psychological disorder, whatever it is. Pedophilia, and there's 3 different kinds depending on the age that they target, so it's really interesting to research it actually. But these people do have a sickness, and they do target, and they are very meticulous about it. So at 21, I left my abusive boyfriend that I had started dating at 14 when he was 21. And so I left him, and I moved back in with the house, and instead of being given my old bedroom, I was put on the couch in the living room in front of everyone, and my boxes of things were piled around the couch to create a wall, a barrier, which you could still see over. So I had to basically sleep in the front of the house in the living room where everyone got to watch me sleep. And this was with a man who sexually abused me for years. And I had escaped at 14 and asked it to stop at 9. And now I'm 21 and I'm back there in an even less secure environment. And I was terrified. And I was out every night doing drugs and living under bridges, doing cocaine, because I just couldn't go home. I couldn't face that anymore. And my mom ended up somehow convincing him, very much against his will, to buy a rental property where she got me into and a bunch of other roommates, and this was supposed to be a safe house for me. But he knew the code to get in, and he would come over unannounced all the time to do, yard work or house maintenance. So it really didn't feel safe. And I had to sleep with a knife under my pillow, and every turn of every doorknob woke me up every night. And when you were living with that kind of insomnia and that kind of fear and that fight and flight on a 24/7 basis, it wrecks your psychological response to be able to control your happiness, because you're always worried about the next thing. You're always scared. You're always ready to attack. You're so jumpy, and it was pure mental torture to know that this person could let themselves into my life, into my room, into my house at any point, at any given time. And from a young mental standpoint, they felt they had the right to my body whenever they wanted. That is what they taught me by demonstrating that with their actions at a young age. So how was I not supposed to live in fear that that might come about again? Having learned more about pedophilia since, I know that there's a certain age group that he would target, and I was far out of that age group, so I was no longer a target, but it was still a fear in my head, for sure. So at 21, when I moved back in, I told my mom again that this was why I was never coming home and never sleeping on the couch, and I never wanted to be there, and I refused to do birthday dinners and Christmas dinners and all that, because she was devastated that I was rebelling and I didn't want to be the part of the family and I hated them. And I explained, no, I don't, but this is what happened. And she, she cried, she bawled her eyes out. She said I had never told her before, and this was the first time she was hearing about it, and she would have divorced him if she had known when I was younger, and she's so sorry. And then she flipped and said that maybe it was my fault because I was a bad kid and I didn't listen, and it was God's way of punishing me and teaching me a lesson. And that destroyed religion for me. I blamed God for years. Yeah, maybe I was a bad kid. Yeah, maybe I didn't listen. But I didn't deserve to be raped by my own father. That's sick. But, again, having gone through counseling and understanding more on the psychological basis, I understand that she's in denial. And the denial is one of the strongest emotions we have. And you can really turn anything you want into anything you want if you believe strong enough. And her thought pattern is that he is sick in the mind. A good Christian is here to heal the sick and help those who are hurt. And I am not being a good Christian by reporting him, because I'm not helping him. I'm just making his life harder. And if I was a good Christian, I would drop the charges and go to family counseling. Not because it's not true, but because there's other ways of dealing with it. And she said that exactly to me right after he was charged for sexually abusing a minor. And she said, I hope you're happy. I hope this makes you happy. What are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? And I couldn't help think, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 14-year-old, I kept it all inside to make sure you had a place to go. I'm 26, I'm out on my own, you don't have to feed me, you don't have to pay for me. I am not a burden to you anymore. It is not my burden to worry about where you go and what you do, and worry about his income being what keeps a roof over your head, because that should never have been my burden. And if you regret it so much that you would have divorced him if you knew back then, why are you not divorcing him now? Why are you still supporting the abuser? Because it's not showing me much support. It's destroying me inside that I can't talk to my family because they believe that I'm in the wrong, because I won't forgive and forget. And he's just simply sick in the head. And because he goes to church now, he's a good Christian and he's changing his ways and he wants to make amends. 20 years later, after he's in trouble, not because he wants to, but because he's in trouble. He's not sad that he did it, he's sad he got caught. And that's any abuser. They're not gonna regret what they did, they're gonna regret getting caught. And the only way to stop people from continuing to make more victims out of children is to expose them and to cast light in their shadows and to get those monsters out of the closet. Because if they're seen, if they're known, people aren't going to go near them. People won't be controlled by them. They won't have that power and that manipulation over you. When you open up your wounds and you rip that band-aid off and you own your past, because it's not your fault and it never was, and you never deserved to be abused or hurt or raped. And no one ever deserves to be sexually abused. Not ever. Not by anyone. Not in any way. And it's never your fault, and you never deserve that. And that's how I feel about it. I've felt a full range of emotions. I felt like I wanted to hurt him. I felt like I wanted to go back there, and one of our lives at least, I feel enraged that he didn't finish the job. I feel like he was a hunter that hunted an animal and wounded me and left me for dead. He didn't bother to take the courtesy of following me down and finishing the job. And that's how I feel. It's like a wounded animal walking around, bleeding out, and dying on the inside. But no one had the courtesy to put me out of my misery. And I remember when I was younger, Emotions that a very young me felt when I didn't have the courage I have now, when I didn't have the skills I have now to deal with it. And I promise you, counseling is going to empower you and give you the skills to say these things, to acknowledge these things, to empower yourself by owning your past so that your past can't haunt you anymore. It can't hurt you if you own it. If you say, these are all my flaws, who's going to teach you? Because now everyone knows you owned it. I've made fun of myself. Go ahead and try, but you have no power over me when I own my own past. And so he's lost his power. He's lost that control over me. My life is no longer controlled or defined by the fact that I was sexually abused as a child, because it's beyond that. This is beyond me. This is something that's so much bigger than me. And that's why things like this are important. That's why counseling at CCASA, so CCASA is Calgary Communities Against Sexual Abuse, and they offer free counseling for child sexual abuse victims, or any sexual abuse victim. Actually, you don't have to be a child or have had to have been abused as a child. Anyone can go there who's been sexually abused and get free counseling services and get guidelines and tips and resources. They can get help reporting, they can get emotional support, they can get financial support. There's so many resources out there to help victims of sexual abuse that all you have to do is tell one person, and you can go to CCASA and you can sit in a room with an unbiased person in a very private and confidential setting and let it all out and get everything you need, and the world doesn't have to know. My world, my friends, my loved ones, all of you, didn't know this until now, and this is 20 years later since it started, 12 years since I first told somebody, over a year since I reported. So everything takes time, nothing happens overnight. But I can promise you, if you start with counseling, that is the first step on a long and wonderful road to empowering yourself. July 6th of last year, and it was a few days after my birthday, and I was planning on reporting for a while. So I got out of that rental property that my mom had gotten. It was a safe zone for me that my father was well aware of the code to get inside and come over unannounced all the time. So I got out of that property, and I was in my own space, and I was mingling with the thought of reporting this to the police, which you can so lovely hear all around us. They're beautiful. They do their job well. They try their best, and they have hard jobs. So, however this is dealt with by the law enforcement, they're doing their protocol and they're doing their best. And that's all anyone can ever do or ask for. So I reported it. My thoughts were that I was going to go to the police station with my big folder of every incident that had ever happened and all the proof I had and all the names I had, and I was going to go in with this big case and here's all this evidence that I got, and here's everything. And I was so scared to go in. I just kept putting off the date and putting off the date. And I was walking by a police station on my way to work one day, and I thought, fuck it, if I don't do it now, it's never going to get done. And I was terrified, and I walked in and I said, I gotta report a crime. And the officer yells across the station without getting up out of his chair. There's another man beside me who's also writing a report, and the officer said, well, what are you reporting? And in front of this office full of police officers at their desk and this stranger beside me, I was leaning on this counter, and I was breathing hard, and I was waving myself, and I said, I'm sorry, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And he goes, that's okay. And, you know, I'm still in the public area. And I said, I'm reporting that my child, I'd like to report that my father sexually molested me as a child. And at this point, I started bawling. And there was dead silence in the entire office. And the eyes that whipped to me from all these officers. And finally, someone got up. taking some of your bricks. And your psychologist takes some of those bricks. And basically, they're taking that psychological weight of that emotional abuse and that trauma, and they're taking it off your shoulders. So while I still have a full backpack, and at this point, through all my therapy and skills, the sets that I've learned through therapy, I know that my backpack is full. And I'm dealing with this court case, and that's all I can deal with right now. And so there have been certain situations in my life that I just had to walk away from. As much as I love people and I want to help people, I don't have enough room in my backpack to carry any more bricks. And I'm carrying all my bricks right now, and I'm dealing with that. And I can't take someone else's bricks when they're dealing with something. If they're dealing with a breakup, or if they're dealing with their own abuse, or they're dealing with addiction, or any other problem, I feel for them. My heart goes out for them. I wish them the best. And I will always provide all these resources that I know of for them to get professional help. But the honest truth is I'm not an officer. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a detective. And at this point in my life, I have no care in the world to be any of those things because I'm carrying enough bricks just being me. And I love being me. I'm great at being me. But this is as much as I can handle. And the officers helped me understand how to let go of that weight if it ever becomes too much. I can call the officer and get some bricks out and let go of some of that tension and just let steam out. Or I can go to my counselor, or I can phone a support line. Like, there's so many resources out there to utilize that there is no reason that I should be overwhelmed with this. And thankfully, in this day and age, there is a lot of help out there for sexual abuse victims. I replied with, I can't deal with anyone today, very upset about the situation. Healing has been happening for the last 16 years since I had to ask for it to stop. It will take a lifelong process. It has taken 10 years of counseling to give me the courage to do the right thing, report the abuse, protect others from the same abuse, and help victims get on the road to recovery. The moment I reported the abuse last year, it was out of my control what charges, if any, were laid. There's nothing I can do to stop the consequences of his abuse, and I have no reason to carry any guilt for him having to deal with the consequences of his actions. I replied with, it is always the right thing to report any child abuse. I repeat that it is always the right thing to report any child abuse. This is not vengeance or out of anger. It is simply the right thing to do. To protect others. I have no control. I cannot stop this. It was a crime committed to a child. It is the province charging him, not me, which is true. As a child in Alberta, you are a witness to a crime. If they have adequate evidence to press charges, then I have no say. I am simply a witness to a crime. Ask the constable if you are unsure, but that is the situation. I was this. If you have any information you did not give the police, then phone constable with any information you have to give. It is neither my job nor yours to investigate a crime or conclude what consequences a criminal will abide to after a crime has been committed. I cannot risk letting anyone else continue to hurt if there are other victims, and that isn't up to me to find out. That is up to the police, as is any other evidence they have found since. I do not need to carry the burden of any future information you think has to do with this. That's up to the police. If you are withholding any information pertaining to this case, tell the police. I am not an officer. I'm not a psychologist. I am not a detective. And I have no care in the world to be any of those. My future will be beautiful. If you want to be a part of it, I would love that. But my rapist will not be. I'm taking a vacation day. I'm not losing anything. I'm just gaining peace of mind. I'm turning my phone off now. I love you lots. Always have and always will. Call CCASA, Calgary Communities Against Sexual Abuse, at 403-237-5888 for support. You are obviously hurting. Phone the constable with any information you have regarding this case. She said she loves me, she understands, and she will be part of my future. We will survive and thrive. That was the last time I talked to my mom. The officer went and talked to her about interfering with an investigation and trying to get a witness to drop criminal charges. And she was given a warning that if she continued, she would be charged. And I have not heard from my mom since, and I desperately feel like I cannot talk to my own family anymore. And that is destroying me. So this is the Calgary courthouse. Right now, this is the scariest building in the world to me. Because every few weeks I get told that there's a plea going to be entered. And every few weeks, on that day, I get told that plea is pushed off. And it'll be another few weeks before I get an update. And every single day that I get told that there's might be a plea entered, builds this anxiety inside of me that there is going to be a day where I have to stand here and testify against my own family. And that's terrifying. And my expectations of it are nothing. I expect nothing. I want anything. I am taking preventative measures to prevent abuse from repeating itself, because abuse is a cycle. There's always a cycle of abuse, and someone needs to stop it. So I'm stopping that cycle of abuse right here, right now, with me. And I don't expect to get anything. My life is grand. I need to protect other people from getting hurt by him, and I need to prevent myself from killing myself on the inside with guilt by feeling like if I didn't say something, there's a potential that he's still out there hurting people. So I guess that's one way to help me heal, is by preventing other victims, so that I don't have to live with the guilt of thinking that the only reason he was able to hurt someone else is because I didn't say something. I have so many nightmares of it, and this sucks so badly. But this is the only right thing to do, and no one deserves to be abused. And getting counseling is the first step down a long road of helping yourself, and this is the last step, helping other people, making sure no one else gets hurt. So this is a long road in the making. This has been 2016, 12 years of counseling, something like that, on and off. This has been, bad coping mechanisms, drug abuse, eating disorders, suicide. This has been a roller coaster of a fucking ride. But I'm here, and I'm stronger because of it, and he's not gonna win. And he can't hurt me anymore, no matter what. I win. Doesn't matter if I win in court, or if he isn't charged, or if he's not found to be guilty because there's not enough evidence. Not because it's not true. Everyone knows it's true. But if there's not enough evidence, the courts have to abide by a certain procedure, and that's okay, and I understand that. But my story was told, and I'm better than that, and I raised above it, and I did survive. He killed me. He killed my soul. And that means I win, no matter what. I don't have to win here in court. I don't have to win in that room. I don't need anything from this, and I expect nothing from this. I've already won. That's it. I'm already the winner. I'm already better than him. I've already done everything I need to do to make sure that he can't hurt anyone else. Whether I like it or not, he is my father. And I can't control it. I can't control who gave birth to me, or who my parents are, or who my family is. But I can love him. And I believe that this is the best way to get him the help that he deserves. He so desperately deserves to get professional help. And every child deserves to get professional help that has been abused. Anyone who's been sexually abused deserves to get help. Deserves to know it was never their fault. Deserves to know that they didn't deserve it. That it wasn't your fault. And I'm so sorry if anyone has ever experienced that kind of abuse. Because it's not okay. But you're bigger than that. And you're better than that. And you're a survivor, not a victim. No, you're not a victim. You're better than that. You survived. You're a survivor. Tell your story. It's the only thing that you can do to win, no matter what.